So I had a birthday recently. I'm not gonna tell you guys the exact date, but I got some new books for my birthday. So why don't we go through them and why don't we talk about them, why I picked them up and why I'm excited to read them, and hopefully you'll see them soon. Probably not. It'll probably be a while till you see all these talked about on my channel. I don't know. I've been kind of going away from reviewing individual books, but if one really stands out to me and if one really interests me, I'm definitely going to go through it. But as of right now, I'm stepping away from that a little bit. So we're going to just do videos like this, streams where I go into more depth about certain things I love. Hopefully tonight, if I do the right prep work, we're going to talk about an Emerson essay, but no promises there. I really want to put my best effort into that, and I'm not going to sacrifice the product for just getting something out. So first thing we have is something by P.D. Uspensky. I actually just found out about this, and this was a book I ordered instantly after finding out about it. It is The Strange Life of Ivan Osokin. I didn't know Uspensky wrote any sort of fiction, and it's a work of fiction that tackles the idea of recurrence. I don't know what to think about it. I've read things such as, In Search of the Miraculous, which is probably Uspensky's best well-known book and probably his best book. I've read Psychology of Man's Possible Evolution. Enjoyed it. Wasn't to the same depth as In Search of the Miraculous. So the next book I'm going to talk about, which is Tertium Organum, which is separate of Gurdjieff's work. I think that's what Uspensky's most well known for, and that's really the book that put him on Gurdjieff's kind of radar. But yeah, I'm interested to read this. I don't know too much about it. I think this is one of those books that you can't really explain until you've read it, and it's really the first place where we get the idea of Groundhog's Day, of repeating the same theme over and over again. And interestingly enough, Bill Murray has a real connection to, I think either he studied Gurdjieff or he was in a Gurdjieff school. He has some sort of tying to Uspensky, and it's just interesting that he's the one that starred in that movie. And yeah, it's really inspired that movie. I have not watched that movie. I'll probably watch it after I read this book, but I just thought that was a cool sort of aside to bring up, because I feel like even if you haven't watched that movie Groundhog's Day, you know that idea that you feel like you're living through the same event over and over again. And it's a trope that you see in a lot of really popular TV shows where the whole plot of the episode is that you're repeating the same day until you learn the lesson that you're meant to learn. And I'm just interested to explore this idea, especially through Uspensky, and especially through a new avenue I didn't know Uspensky explored. So next thing we'll get into is, I'm not going to know how to say this, Euripides, the Bacchae, and other plays. The reason I picked this up is because recently I've been finding myself being more and more fascinated with the Greeks and Romans. You'll see that later on in sort of the video, because I'll have another book where I'll talk about the same idea. But right now I'm interested in the roots of things and where these ideas come from and where they kind of spring out from, because the more I study stuff, the more I kind of see that there's some universal truths that were always known, that we think that we discovered, we think that we put forward, but it was really there, steeped in allegory, steeped in some sort of story or some sort of messaging that we can't quite unpack. And the more we go back, the more we can learn about the future. And there's this somewhat interesting idea in that. And this is just a collection of plays. I really do want to go back and read all the Greek tragedies, because, I mean, if you read Shakespeare, he's really just stealing those old tropes, those old kind of patterns of stories. And it's just going to be interesting for me to kind of see the root of things, see where these stories develop, and see where a lot of our inspiration for storytelling comes from. There's something so interesting in storytelling, and there's something so fascinating to me in being able to tell a good story and weave a narrative that can teach people of all intellects the same lesson and inspire the entire civilization in the same way, such as works of the Odyssey, or the works of Shakespeare, the works of Dante, or the works of Milton. Like, there's just something about being able to tell a universal story that just fascinates me so much. So it's going to be interesting to go back to the basics, go back to the roots of these things, and go back to the very early plays. The next thing we have is The Sound of Waves by Yukio, I hope that's how you say it, Mishima. I probably said everything wrong, but Mishima is interesting because if you just look him up on Wikipedia, and the most insane Wikipedia bio I've ever seen, like, just just you weren't expecting this, and you weren't expecting him to be a good author at the same time. But just reading some things on the back, Yukio Mishima is widely considered to be one of the greatest Japanese writers. The Sound of Waves, his timeless story of first love, is set in a remote Japanese fishing village. It tells of Shinji, a young fisherman, and Hatsu, the beautiful daughter of the wealthiest man in the village. Shinji is, I feel like I'm cursing when I say this, is because it feels wrong saying it. Like, I know I'm saying it wrong, so it feels like I'm saying something I shouldn't be saying. Entrance at the sight of Hatsu in the twilight on the beach upon her return from the island where she has begun training to be a pearl diver. They fall in love, but must then endure the calumny? I don't know the word, and gossip of the villagers. I just think it's gonna be an interesting story. I've heard of Mishima. I really don't know if this is the place to start with him, but this is the thing that I've seen recommended the most to me. I feel like a few people have told me to read him. I don't really know where to go. I don't really know where to start. I think this is the one people told me to read, but whenever I see a name repeated time and time again, I'm just going to pick up something by them. Maybe I don't pick up their best book, but if I enjoy it, I'll probably go pick up more of it. But yeah, I'm excited to see what he has to offer. A lot of people have been telling me that Japanese literature is fantastic, and I really just, I don't know where to start, one, and two, I haven't taken the time to get into it. It's like anything though, there's just so much to learn, there's so much to read, and that's really the coolest aspect about reading as a hobby, is that you could read the same genre your entire life and not even scratch the surface with it, or you could try to spread yourself thin and read everything and just get a little bit of all these different subjects. But there's all different schools of thought, there's all different ways of doing it, and it's really a personal journey, and that's really the coolest bit of it. It's like, you know, if you love movies, you're kind of stuck with watching the same really, really good movies. There's not that much diversity in terms of that, but you know, there's entire worlds of tremendous authors that you've never heard of and you will never hear of, but to somebody that's their favorite author. And that's just the coolest thing about reading, and that's the coolest thing about sharing ideas, is that it's just, you can penetrate to such a level of understanding and depth without even necessarily being world famous. It's just a really cool phenomena that I've kind of discovered. But the next thing I have is Osamu Dazai, No Longer Human. I picked this up randomly at Barnes & Noble's one time, and I was reading the back of it, and I seemed to be enthralled with it. I didn't pick it up at the time because you know, there's a million things on my plate. There's a million things I want to read, but I kept this in my mind, and then since that I've seen this book talked about on YouTube videos. I haven't even watched the videos, but I've just seen it in the thumbnails, and if that isn't a synchronicity, if that isn't a sign to pick something up, I don't know what is. This is what it says on the back. Mine has been a life of much shame. I can't even guess myself what it must be to live the life of a human being. And that is a very poignant question. And if you can put that on the back, I'm assuming you could put something very good in between the front and back cover. So, portraying himself as a failure, the protagonist of Osamu Dazai's No Longer Human narrates a seemingly normal life even while he feels himself incapable of understanding human beings. Oba Yozo's attempt to reconcile himself to the world around him began in early childhood, continued through high school, and where he became a clown to mask his alienation, eventually led to a failed attempt as an adult. I almost said a word that could get me demonetized. Without sentimentality, he records the casual cruelties of life and its fleeting moments of human connection and tenderness. So it doesn't seem like a very uplifting book, but it seems like an interesting book. And I don't know. Sometimes I enjoy books like that. Sometimes I don't. I think it's going to be an interesting kind of exploration of modern life and its hollowness, and just a perspective of, do we even know ourselves? Do we even live ourselves? Do we even appear to be ourselves in everyday life? Next thing I have is something I've actually read before, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. I read this when I was much younger. I don't know if it's going to hold up in terms of its if I'm going to enjoy it as much. I'm assuming that I'm going to really enjoy it, if not appreciate it more. Mark Twain is one of those names that you hear a lot, but I don't know, for whatever reason I haven't picked them up since I've gone back into reading. I've gone back into studying stuff. When I read him when I was younger, I very much enjoyed this book. I very much had fun reading this book, but for whatever reason I haven't returned to it. Most of the books I enjoyed when I was younger I have reread at this point, but this is one of the only ones that I have not done that yet with, and I'm just excited to go back through this and get that little bit of Mark Twain's kind of charm and his sort of unique style. I don't know how to explain it, but there's just something about Mark Twain's writing that's just it's so him, and like you know it when you see it. It's like that one person that was trying to become a Supreme Court justice was saying it. You know it when you see it. The next thing we have is The Tempest by William Shakespeare. I've heard this is his most imaginative play. I really do like Shakespeare. I mean, how could you not? Like, if you appreciate art, you appreciate Shakespeare. I don't think I'm saying a crazy opinion. I don't think I'm saying anything that's like not blatantly obvious, but I have not read The Tempest. I've not really heard about The Tempest. From what I know, it's the one that follows the least sort of grounding to it. Like, think of Macbeth, or think of Julius Caesar, or Henry the Fifth, right? I really need to go back and read all of Shakespeare, but all of those plays have some grounding, have some history behind it, have some sort of plot points to follow, where this one is kind of his own and has his own sort of take on it. I can't remember exactly where I heard about this and heard that that's the case, but I remember reading a book, I want to say a year or two ago, and it stuck out to me that I need to read The Tempest because it's the aspects that I like the most about writing, and it's Shakespeare doing that, and I really want to see where he goes with it. I really want to get into it and see what he has to offer in terms of that sort of more imaginative style of writing, which really is my favorite style of writing. And on to the last thing, which is the Aeneid. I've actually never read this, and I don't really know the story that well. I know what it is. I know it's sort of the story that Virgil wrote that is supposed to be the founding of Rome. I don't know how accurate it is. I don't know if it has any sort of history to it. I think that's kind of the beauty of these stories, is that there's probably something in it that's true, but there's probably other aspects that are embellished, and there's probably other things that aren't quite right. Like, I don't know if this is confirmed or not, but like, there's a lot of speculation as to whether, the sacking of Troy was actually a real thing, and if the tales of the Odyssey and the Iliad had any sort of backing to it. And that's something I don't know if we'll ever know. That's something that I feel like will be speculated for the rest of time, and I'm sure it's something similar with the Aeneid. But I'm just super fascinated with what this book is, because I love Dante. I think Dante is one of my favorite writers, and the Divine Comedy is so heavily inspired by Dante, or by Virgil, by the Aeneid. In fact, in the Divine Comedy, Virgil is the one that's guiding Dante around, and I just think it's going to be really cool to see what inspired one of my favorite authors. It's a really good way to find new books, is to see what inspired your favorite authors. So when I hear Blake talking about Dante, when I hear Borges talking about Dante, I know I'm probably going to like Dante because I love both of those guys' writing. When you hear, people talking about Walt Whitman, or people talking about Emerson, or people talking about Thoreau, like, that's how I kind of find who I'm going to study next. That's how I find who I'm going to read next. And that's really been one of my best sources of finding new information. Now, in the future, I'll probably have to change, because a lot of those names repeat. A lot of those people are inspired by the same people. A lot of those people you can trace back to Plato or Socrates or Aristotle. And, eventually it's just one big loop. But, for the time being, until that resource is exhausted, that's how I'm going to keep finding the books that I am reading. Let me know some of the books you're reading right now. Let me know some of the things that you have picked up recently. I don't know. I feel like, I don't want to say I've been in a slump, but I feel like I've been reading the same book for like way too long now, and I'm kind of just, I'm getting bored of this subject, and always open to new inspiration, always open to new ideas. But with that said, I love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. If you want more from me, go ahead, check out my Substack. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, become a channel member. However you want to support me, don't feel the pressure to, but it's always appreciated, and I love you guys more than you could ever know, because the fact that anybody's interested in what I have to say is fascinating to me, because I don't know. It's just one of those things you don't expect people to be interested. You don't expect people to be inspired or find anything in what you have to say. But you know, it's been the case with me so far, and I'm just gonna keep going. And I'm just gonna keep pushing forward and continue to learn, continue to grow. Peace out. Love you guys.